Welcome into Command Center. I'm Julie Donaldson. Now that the 4th of July is behind us, it is full steam ahead to training camp, and we have you covered. The players are on break until they report on July 26th. So how do they stay in shape in the interim? Logan and Santana have the answer. Also, head coach Ron Rivera met with Logan after an OTA practice to discuss how the team is progressing through the offseason program. Plus, now that the rookies have gotten their feet wet, what's the next step to make sure that they are ready for the rigors of an NFL season? And who better to get us ready for training camp than some greats from Washington's past? All that and more right now. And it is official, training camp 2022 will be held right here in Ashburn, Virginia. The team will report July 26th and camp will report on the 27th. And with that, we welcome you on in. Logan, Paulsen, and Santana Moss here with me. So the team's a little bit on a break. Let me start off kind of asking you about this, because you need to be physically and mentally prepared when training camp comes around. That's the biggest thing that head coach Ron Rivera said, is making sure that the guys keep up their conditioning. What do they need to do to make sure that, what are they doing right now, basically, Santana?
Getting away. I mean, let's be honest.
Not all the way away, though.
You're not all the way away, but you're getting away.
You're on vacation and you're running.
You're on vacation, but you worry like crap that you make sure that I got to get up and work out while I'm having a good time, which sucks. You know what I mean? You feel like you're always a prisoner in your mind, saying that football, regardless of how much time I get off, I still have to go out here and make sure I'm ready.
I know you never really took breaks, but how do you get mentally ready for camp?
So, I'd take probably like the first 4 days before training camp and kind of review the film, watch OTAs, make sure that material is ready for me, and then I always felt like I was a little bit ahead of everybody else going into training camp.
Okay, well, the vets, they have it down, kind of what they want, but for the rookies, well, it will be a new experience. Now, with 4 first-round draft picks and a second added in this most recent draft, the Commanders' defensive line is stacked and has the potential to be one of the best units in football. Now, during minicamp, Hall of Fame defensive tackle Warren Sapp was at a few practices and spoke very highly of what he saw from the line, notably John Allen and Duron Payne.
Probably.
I love them. I love those two dudes. Boy, Jesus, they just thick. They're bowling ball at Butcher now. So now I'm just trying to get out of that two gap. Let's go forward. Let's build a camp in the backfield, 3 yards deep. Penetration kill all running plays. Penetration disrupt the timing of an offense. And no quarterback wants that kitchen in his living room. No way. Come on, man. And then you got these ends coming off with Chase and Sweat. Fellas, let's set the stage. They'll take him off. I guarantee you. So just work together as a unit. That's all I'm trying to get them to understand. Work together as a unit. Work every day. And what you put in this game, you'll definitely get out of it.
Anybody stop by any of y'all's camps when you're around that, maybe played the game, had a little bit of an impact on you that stood out?
Yeah, we had guys with Mike who came by all the time, right? He would get his former players kind of. Like Shannon Sharp was a guy, I remember him coming to talk to the team, and he always said he could tell who the good professionals were by how clean their locker was. And I remember I was a rookie at the time, and I had like a little panic attack because I was like, my locker is a disaster. But
that's a lie.
Yeah.
We had guys like Pittman, Rod Smith, those guys came in. And then, Mike brought those guys in because he wanted us to kind of, get a little taste of their formula and what made them great, over there in Denver. And it wasn't probably a year or two removed when we got a taste of that and really went out there and played pretty well.
But did you ever have anybody that came in and gave you advice, like back when I played, that didn't apply to the game at all? I had that happen to me a couple times.
All the time.
It doesn't work like that.
We had a guy that MF'd everybody one time, and he was supposed to be a Hall of Famer, one of the best, better known corners that we don't speak on, that played for the late Redskins, and trust me, he MF'd everybody in the room, and we just thought it was hilarious. And he MF'd us when he left. All right, F you guys again, you know what I mean? So, but it's always great to see those guys, and I'm pretty sure a lot of the guys, especially those young guys, get a chance to really, be a sponge, take in what these guys have to offer, just knowing that they watched these guys growing up.
It wasn't just Sapp. We also had a lot of alums that were out there as well. And head coach Ron Rivera was saying how important that is, that you bring in the guys that played the game, that laid the foundation, especially for the burgundy and gold, and kind of have those conversations with the guys that are now carrying that torch and looking to try and achieve what some of them did, because we've got 3 Super Bowls here, hopefully one coming in the near future. But look, it takes a lot of work, and it's hard to get there, and that starts in the off season. We just had OTAs, mini camp, and training camp is coming up. Logan, what is the biggest difference between those 3?
Well, I think OTAs and minicamp are almost indistinguishable at this point. It used to be like a big deal, ramp up with the shoulder pads on for minicamp. That's not really the case anymore. Now, training camp's kind of the first time the guys put the pads on in the whole offseason process. So I think, outside of being fined in minicamp, same as OTA, then all of a sudden training camp, that's when the blood starts to boil. That's when things start heating up. And so I think that's, to me, the biggest difference between the three.
I think the biggest difference nowadays is just training camp. You have to be here. Things are rolling right now. You need to be ready for the season. OTAs and mini camps, they're not viewed the same way no more. I mean, you don't really go out there and get after guys. You're kind of treading a little lightly, trying to make sure that you get guys into training camp. So the biggest difference now, just knowing, I think most of these guys have a mindset of just knowing that, hey, training camp, all the contracts and everything else I have going on should be behind me. It's now time to get ready for the season.
And you can't dismiss how we're having to ask every question of a player, like, what do you think of Terry McLaurin? What's happening out here? Yeah. To be able to put all that behind you. And also now you're in that third year with head coach Ron Rivera with his staff. You know exactly what to expect when you do get ready for training camp. There are a few extra pieces, though, that were added in free agency and throughout the draft. And, well, how do they all come together? Logan had a conversation with head coach Ron Rivera on that.
Coach, always a pleasure to get to talk to you. So I was thinking, obviously OTA period, it's like this optional team activity. I don't think fans understand how important it is. How important is this period to laying the foundation for your 2022 campaign?
Well, that's exactly what it is. It's about laying down the foundation. We got a bunch of new parts that all have to start learning how to work together, how to fit, how to communicate.
Yeah.
And that's what we're seeing right now. You've seen a lot of it, especially with the offensive side initially. Getting Carson in and having him become acclimated to his teammates has been really good. And then defensively, you're really starting to see it, especially with the secondary, the communications. One of the things that we talked about last year during the season that we struggled with early in the year, and I think a big part of it was we didn't have them all here during OTAs. This year, we've been where we've only had 2 or 3 guys not here, and in one case, only 1 guy not here. So we've had great participation. We have guys that have come together, have really worked together, and starting to form that bond that you look for in really good teams. Yeah,
and you mentioned the personnel there quite a bit. Are you trying things from a schematic standpoint that are a little bit different from last year to get guys in those better spots?
I believe so. I believe on both sides of the ball, there are some things that we're able now to grow into and do more of.
Yep.
On the offensive side, I think part of it has to do with the fact that, Carson has a different skill set, different type of arm compared to Taylor. So it's allowed Scott to do a couple of other things, different things from what we did last year. Defensively, because we've got so many guys that now have really had a good, solid year. They've laid the foundation. Now you start to see them playing and moving much better, moving with more confidence. That's probably one of the really cool things is you see guys play faster when they're more confident.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you mentioned the coordinators there. It's been a long time since you were a coordinator. Did you have something you were looking for, and do you have things that you're looking for from your coordinators now in this period to kind of like schematically or from a personnel standpoint?
I think as you look at it schematically is to get that rhythm in terms of play calling. And I know this is just practice, but you watch, and especially Jack, because he's such a veteran at it, you see him just kind of move right into one call from the other. Where you want to see Scott as a young coordinator understand that there's a flow, there's a rhythm, and when you get into it, it's about play call, play call, play call. It's not reaching and grabbing, but it's just everything just kind of flows in, and when you see those rhythms, those are really cool. And one of the things that we do out is we call we have a move the ball period. And that's real important because, I try to create different situations, whether it be second and short, third and long, third and long, and you want them to have to adjust and adapt and call plays on the run. And then we'll do that also when we do the no huddle periods, where I try to create the up tempo. It's not 2 minute, but it's just up tempo football. Coaches have got to make quick calls, quick decisions.
And it seems like you guys got to that earlier. Like when I played, I was always kind of later in OTAs. How much of that is a testament to like having guys that have been around a lot and having Carson and his experience kind of learning this offense?
Well, I think it's very important because early on in the beginning of OTAs, we only had 3 guys that weren't here for the most part. And that meant everybody was here working, kind of coming together, getting used to one another. And then as we got into this phase of it now, phase 3, we've got all but 1 guy here for the most part, which has been really good. And you see guys really coming together, really kind of working at it. And it is a good testament to just how quickly Carson has picked things up, how quickly the rookies have picked some things up, because we got a lot of those guys involved already. So absolutely. That's exciting.
And you mentioned the rookies, and last time I got to talk to you was about the draft. And how important is this OTA period to kind of like either confirming your evaluation or kind of letting you know that these guys got something that might be contributing this year?
It does confirm your evaluation, but the biggest part is just what you said. It's about having guys that you can say, man, this guy's going to contribute this year already. And you feel good about our picks because we really think these guys all have an opportunity to come in and be part of what we're doing going forward.
Obviously everyone expected Jahan to come in and play really well, but Holmes, Chris Paul, even Cole Turner have all played really well. Like, what does that mean for you to kind of have that depth piece now with those positions?
Well, first of all, it's kudos to our scouting department.
Right.
I think what Martin and Marty and Eric and Tim Gribbles, those guys have done a great job for us.
Yeah.
And when these guys go out and find these guys later in the draft and they can come in and look like they're going to be able to contribute, that's a big deal.
Absolutely. And so a guy you talked about off camera was Jamin.
Mm-hmm.
Have you been happy with how he's progressing?
Yes. I have. Jamin's a rep guy. The more reps he gets, the better and more comfortable he gets, plays with more confidence, plays faster. So far, things have gone really well. It looks like he's really starting to pick things up, coming together. I think part of it, too, is, we've settled in and we really feel that Cole's got an opportunity to be that Mike linebacker.
Yeah.
So really, we've got guys settled in positions as opposed to last year when we were trying to see who does what. So we feel pretty good about that.
Yeah, and you mentioned Cole at the middle linebacker spot. One of the things I've noticed just watching practice is kind of Federian and Allen, how they're able to kind of keep him covered up. How important is that kind of for his development?
That's very important because, again, one of the things that we want him to understand is that I got these guys in front of me. These guys, they're going to absorb the double team.
Yeah.
They're not going to allow those teams to just scoop up right
Yep.
and get into his face. So what he's got to understand is I've got to be able to make quick reads, fast reads, and get myself going to where I need to be. And then when I get there, I've got to be able to put my hands in the right proper position so that I can win with leverage.
Well, it is the second season with the 17-game schedule. So like 2021, Washington only has 3 preseason games on the schedule, starting August 13th against the Panthers, and the Commanders hit the road for the next 2 games. First, August 20th against Kansas City, then finishing up on the 27th in Baltimore. When it comes to the preseason, and we only have 3 now compared to 4. That 4th game was where all the starters could basically sit back, relax, and maybe a little bit watch some guys on the bubble. Now that's the 3rd preseason game, but the question always is, how much do you really need to start the starters? Rams didn't at all. They won, so you didn't really necessarily have to.
But the Rams have a different approach. They do a lot of joint practices, right? So that's where they get to see and compare their guys to other guys in the league, right? And kind of evaluate the talent of your roster and say, oh, this is where our hole is. This is what we need to do better. And the Washington football team doesn't do that. The Commanders don't do that, and they haven't done that in the past couple of years. So I think if you're not going to use that tool, I think you need to find ways to get guys involved in the preseason as much as possible.
If you're not going to have those joint practices, I think Logan stated it well. If you're not going to have those joint practices, you must see your talent. You must see these guys, go out there and see what product you have going forward. So I think you have to make sure that you get something out of these guys in the preseason games.
I mean, even in a practice, isn't it different when you get in a game? Do guys kind of want just a few reps in the game before the season starts?
I always wanted to play in the preseason. I didn't want to play a whole bunch of reps, but I wanted to go out there and just kind of get my confidence going, just knowing that, hey, I'm ready for week 1, because you want to go out there and go against someone different than what you see every day in practice.
Absolutely, 100%. I think that's exactly right.
The biggest thing, though, is coaches don't want you to get hurt in the preseason, which we've seen plenty of times before. And then, you have a late start, or maybe even some have missed the whole year.
What's meant for you is going to happen. That's how I look at it.
Probably. It doesn't matter if you play or not. Well, we'll see how Coach decides to handle this upcoming preseason soon enough. Can't believe it's almost here. But the dates, they have been set this year for training camp before we even get there. Practices will be kicking off July 27th through August 18th. Fans can sign up for the chance to attend practices through a fan lottery system. And on Saturday, August 6th, fans can practice for free under the lights at FedEx Field. Head on over to commanders.com/training camp for more information. And coming up, we have been watching our rookies and getting ready to see real potential during training camp. Stick around to see what we rate and how we grade out their seasons based on what we have seen and heard from their mini camps. Some of our answers might surprise you. We'll see you after the break. Welcome back to Command Center. It is always a whirlwind for rookies after they get drafted, going right into rookie camp, which is shortly followed by both OTAs, the mini camp, for a baptism by fire into the NFL. Now, with a bit of a break, they had time to reflect on what it meant when they got that phone call saying that they were joining the Washington Commanders.
I really can't describe the emotions, but, it was one of those feelings I never felt before. It's just, one of those feelings like, I just accomplished something big in life, first generation, to do everything I'm doing is just feel amazing, really.
It was something that I've been working towards all my life, and it was a dream come true. So I couldn't put it into words, but you can tell by my facial expressions that I was ecstatic.
At first, it was pretty nerve-wracking, because first 2 days went by, and seemed like forever and losing some sleep over the course of the week. But once my phone finally started ringing and I saw the Virginia area code, it was a big sigh of relief, and I was thankful that I got the opportunity.
Yeah, no, being drafted was a dream come true. It was something I've worked my whole entire life for, so I was just super excited to finally get on a team, and I'm glad I'm here in Washington. It's definitely one of the teams I wanted to play for, so I'm super excited and I'm ready to get to work.
I felt every single emotion in the book. Like, it was just such a surreal moment, and I came here on a visit and I was really hoping that it would be this team, and so just everything happened in a 5-minute time span, so getting that call from Coach Rivera was just life-changing.
Exciting day, of course, draft day is, but now it's time to go to work. And while we've had a little bit of a sampling of what to expect from some of our rookies through OTAs and minicamp, but the real work is about to come. Guys, let's evaluate. I want to know where we currently stand with our top 4 picks. Santana, what have you seen so far, starting with Jahan Dotson?
Well, we don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but when you look at a guy that we brought in the first round at the 16th pick, he's been just that. He's been one of those guys that has floored everybody. I mean, I was only out there for a small bit of time, but I'm watching film with Logan and just seeing some of the things he does naturally, running routes, catching balls. I'm looking forward to what he can do this season.
Yeah, the route stems, it's so high level. The ability to make good corners like Kendall Fuller and William Jackson III look kind of lost at times has been really spectacular to see. The next guy, second round pick, is Federian Matheson. Federian is a big man. Took him a couple days to find his legs. Again, the offensive line here is playing really fast. He was adjusting to the play speed, but again, he is a guy you got to see the length, got to see the physicality, and as the camp went on, not only did he play better, but guys like Jamin Davis and Cole Holcomb played better because he did a great job eating those double teams and taking on blocks.
No doubt. Our next guy is Brian Robinson. He's going to raise the competition level in that running backs room. I can't wait to see what he does on the field this season for us. Don't know how his role would be, but I think right now, just watching what he did in mini camps and OTAs, trust me, these guys better be looking behind their backs because he's coming.
And again, the vision here and how he elevates offensive lines, how he steps with those blocks, I mean, he does that at an elite level. And like you said, pure running back. Interesting to see what you got of that. Next guy is Percy Butler, and again, this guy started slow, much like Federian, had a hard time kind of picking up where he fit in the defense. They had him lined up in the different spots, playing nickel, playing post. Couldn't really figure it out. And then I'd say the last probably 5 or 6 days, you got to see the light click on a little bit. Him running the football. He made a nice pick in minicamp. Again, just a guy starting to make plays, and that's good because it breeds confidence, right? And we still got a lot of time to go with training camp. But, Julie, I'm super excited to see what these guys can do when the pads are on.
That's really where it comes down to it. We even hear coaches saying it kind of is a little bit early to get too far ahead of themselves. But if we're talking about rookies.
You look so young in that picture.
Right?
Look at that.
So this is Santana Moss, drafted by the Jets. You, Logan Paulsen. Logan, you actually almost look a little like your beard and your hair is trimmed a little more. You kind of look
I'm
the
more
same.
rugged. I'm like, my hairline's probably better too.
The only difference right there is that I had this big fro going into the draft and I cut it off just to come into the league. Why did I do so? I don't know, but
I'm not sure I would have been able to know if I just looked at that Santana that was you. You do. You look like a baby.
The face ain't changed that much, though.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, after the break, we went to practice with Commanders alumni and special guests. Stay tuned to hear what advice they had, including some Super Bowl winners for players gearing up for training camp this month. Well, we are back here on Command Center for more of the days of minicamp, but the team hosted an alumni day where former players gathered to watch practice and meet the current members of the Commanders. We caught up with a few of them to ask what went into their personal preparations when getting set for training camp at a long season that follows.
Basically, my training started about 45 days after the season stopped. I would take about 45 days off and I go back into my training routine. Weights, running, sprinting, and back in the day, a lot of distance, which quite honestly, I probably should do more sprinting with distance.
A lot of running, you just want to make sure you come in the best shape that you can be in, so that conditioning is not an issue when you get out here, and you just don't want to get tired and make mistakes because you're tired, and whatever mental work you could do prior thereto, I always wanted to make sure that I wasn't guessing or making mental mistakes, because that can get you moved on to something else, another career, as fast as, not being in shape. So it's really a combination of those two things.
Be as strong as humanly possible, probably run some, try to get as fast as possible. And then it's like learning your playbook, but a lot of times it's know yourself, know what you're good at, master that, and then when you come out here, you get to master anybody else, because then you'll go against people and you get to adjust. But this was a training program. It's tough on some people. I was, kind of the man, I guess, at one time, so the pressure wasn't on as much. But some of these guys, this is your livelihood. You got to go out there and you got to be as close to 100% as possible, because one mistake, you may be out of a job.
So this is that time where guys are kind of back with their families, we were saying before we gear up. But what were you personally doing right now, Santana?
Well, I was back in Miami, and I would try to take a little mini vacation right before that week before I had to report. I hated having a vacation and then having to say I got to come off of vacation and go to work. So I would take it early so I can at least get a week or two home, just so I can relax.
And that was especially rough, like if you had a conditioning test to be ready for. Like when Mike was here, we had a conditioning test we had to be ready for. And so you're always like, am I going to be in good enough shape? Am I going to be out of shape? Because you're going to cut me after the conditioning test. So always tough. But yeah, you try to take it down as much as you can, but it's so hard to, because the camp's coming. And like you said, off air, like 6 months of your life are going to be off the table here soon. So what are you going to do?
I mean, if you get out of condition, how long does it take you to get ready for camp?
Well,
I mean,
it's tough though. Like,
look, you can still be in shape and still fail that test. Honestly, like, let's be real. A lot of folks like, oh, you're a well-tooled machine and this and that. Trust me, man, you can miss a week of doing something bogus. Like, say for instance, I used to go do something, have a nice weekend, and come back that week Monday, and it's the worst Monday ever.
Yeah, well, we won't ask what you're doing over on the weekend. But, look, it is a grind. You do have to take those moments to catch your breath, refresh, because when training camp comes, it is go time. And it's time for us to go in Command Center. We'll see you next time, though.